I have in my hand the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and this is easily one of the most improved smartphones of the entire year, and there are dramatic differences between last year's version and this year's. Here's what's new. What we're looking at here is the thinnest foldable in the world, because when this is open, it's just 0.2 inches thin, and then when you close it, it's 0.4 inches, so it's much closer to a regular phone. In answering one of the biggest criticisms that people have about foldables in general, is it going to fit in my pocket and be comfortable throughout the day? The answer is yes. Unfortunately, you are missing out on some of the fun color options that come on the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL. So what you're left with is obsidian and porcelain. And in between the two, I actually prefer the porcelain because it looks cleaner, which goes well with the lighter, thinner design. In terms of durability, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is IPX8 water resistant, but it's not dust resistant, so it's not something that I would necessarily bring to the beach. And in terms of materials, you have Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and back, and you also have an aluminum cover here for the hinge, so it is fairly durable, and it does feel like that in your hand. The first thing that you'll notice about the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, yes, it's a very long name, is that the display is definitely different, because what you have here is a 6.3-inch display on the cover, and I actually think it's wide enough so you can still use it with two hands and it's nice and comfortable. But on the inside is where it's really interesting, because now you have an 8-inch display that's much brighter than before, going from, let's say, 1700 nits to 2700 nits of peak brightness. So you're going to notice this difference mostly when you're outdoors in direct sunlight. But again, this was one of our complaints about the earlier model. So it's almost like Google saw all of our criticism from last year and ticked off every single one. The other big thing is that the aspect ratio has changed. So before, because of the way the phone was designed, some apps didn't actually fill the entire screen. At first, not even Instagram would work, but it took time for developers to catch up. Now you're not going to have that problem at all, because you basically have two 20:9 aspect ratio displays side by side when you're running apps side by side. So what about portability? The Pixel 9 Pro Fold weighs 9 ounces, 9.1 ounces to be exact, versus 10 ounces for the previous Fold. So that's a huge difference in terms of just everyday carry. And when it comes to the competition, it's still about like a ½ ounce heavier than, let's say, the Galaxy Z Fold 6, which is 8.4 ounces. But again, this is a huge improvement. When it comes to cameras on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, there's not a huge amount of changes, but there's a couple of notable ones. There's a 48 megapixel main wide camera, a 10.8 megapixel telephoto, and a 10.5 megapixel ultra wide. And that ultra wide now gives you a true macro mode. So as I push in, you can see that there's an amazing amount of detail, which will prove once we actually look at the final image, maybe even more. So as I look at the actual image itself, you can see that there's some processing going on in the background, but it is amazingly sharp. I could still zoom in and see a decent amount of detail in the petals, and this is like up super close, so it's a nice improvement. Once you start getting into the photos that you've shot, some of that AI magic starts to happen, and that's powered by the new Tensor G4 chip. So for example, if I wanted to edit this shot, I can go in here. The Magic Editor now has some new capabilities that includes generative AI. So I can select this, I go into the shot itself, I can tap like certain parts of the image, and I wanted to change that. I just click on Reimagine, and then I start typing, and it should know exactly what I'm talking about. And it starts to generate that in the background. Let's see how huge it is. Maybe it still wants it to be like a nice photo. So not exactly roaring, but you can see that you have a couple of options here going through. That one actually counts maybe as a slightly bigger wave. One other camera feature that's powered by AI is called Add Me, which is a little bit creepy but also cool. So the idea is that you could take a group shot, and let's say the photographer wasn't able to be in it. Using augmented reality, you could then stitch yourself into the frame, and it looks pretty convincing at the end, including knowing who was in the foreground and who was in the background. One camera feature that I wish I had when my kids were younger is called Made You Look. So within the camera app, you can actually choose that option, and there's a bunch of animations that are there. You choose that, it then displays on the outer screen, and the idea is to get your kids to smile. So you don't have to look as ridiculous as you usually do, you just point at the screen. So now we come to my only concern that I have with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold so far, and that is it looks like they had to shave some weight and capacity from the battery in order to get this thing so thin. So you're getting a 45 milliamp hour battery around there versus 4800 milliamp hours for the original Pixel Fold, but we're hoping that the Tensor G4 chip on the inside will give this the efficiency that it needs to last longer on the Tom's Guide battery test. We'll have to see how it does. Based on my first impressions, I would say the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is one of the most impressive foldable phones of the year, and that's saying something given the fact that there's a lot of competition out there from Samsung and OnePlus in this category. Google kept the price at $17.99, so you're not getting the price hike that Samsung gave you, and you're getting the biggest display in a foldable, the thinnest design in a foldable, and very good and powerful AI features on the inside. So I'm looking forward to see how well this does in our camera testing, battery life, and benchmarks to see if it is truly, potentially, one of the best foldables of 2024. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments if you think Google has made enough improvements to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold to win you over, and be sure to follow us on all of our social channels at Tom's Guide. For Tom's Guide, this is Mark Spoonhour.